This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'd like to introduce to the show today, Harriet Suchet.
Yes, good morning. It's going to be a great one.
Yes, it is. We've got our first rain here in California in the last couple days, which was making everything extremely chilly. So we went from 100 degrees to freezing cold again. I see that Nolan.
I got to deal with the scary winds last night.
Yeah, the winds were crazy.
Yeah.
We have Nolan Del Campo with us this morning as well. Let's introduce him. Good morning, Nolan.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Yes, good morning, Nolan.
I just lost myself. Actually, I wanted
to scared there for a moment.
That's okay. I wanted to see if Juan could answer a question if he wants to come on the line with us. But I had a YouTuber comment. Frank Burnett said that in Hitting the Road episodes, I see there is a 1, but there is skipped numbers. I want to follow the order of them, or does it not matter? How to follow as they were meant to be. Is there something that I don't know about them getting onto my channel and being able to see episodes 1 through 148 as we've done?
If they get onto the playlist will list them by date.
So I just need to, so they should be able to go to my channel then and find my playlist, the Zodiac playlist,
Correct.
Right? Okay. And that would contain even the pre-records and the live ones, all of them in order?
For our channel, yes. For your channel, you might have to put them into the playlist.
I put them in the playlist each time.
Then they should be, they can organize it by date.
Okay, so that's how I will respond. And for anybody out there that's listening to that right now, thank you so much, Juan. You rock.
Anytime.
Can
And moving.
I say something really quick?
Sure.
Really quick about that? No, I just
Yes.
wanted to say that when we do the shows and then I contact my family and friends, they tell me they're having a hard time finding the shows, and I have to find a way to find it. So something's going on there. Okay. It should be easy to find your shows. We Google your name, and then there's all kinds of the wonderful Apple, all kinds of places you're associated with. So I just wanted to add that. You brought up something that I think maybe this person is finding, it's like you're being screwed with.
Well, and I felt that for quite some time because I've had people attempt to Google finding the Zodiac channel or what have you, and it always seems to be some type of complication with them being able to pull it up. And you could Google me, 100 ways from Sunday and find me all day long, but how about my episodes? It does seem rather strange, and this is not the first time I've had somebody complain about the algorithm of YouTube for these channels. So we'll just keep on rocking it like we can. And like Juan said, we're going to start telling everybody to find the playlist. All right. So
I'll find you on YouTube.
What's that?
Find it on YouTube.
Yeah, no, but it's getting them to come in, order so that they can run through 1 through 148.
Right.
So, and I've said this before, people have gone on and say they got episode number 1. And then typically speaking, when they're watching that, on the right-hand side is additional videos that you could watch that should be by me. Unfortunately, YouTube actually throws up everything but me to the right. So I was used to, when I Googled or I YouTubed a video that had several different episodes, I could see the other episodes that person produced off to the right. That's not what's happening either. So I think that everybody's having a little bit of a problem trying to get to the next video or the next podcast in this playlist. So we're just going to start referring everyone to the playlist. All right. Now, Harriet, I put this letter in here just because. Now, I know that you and Terry had been talking back and forth about the possible meaning of this particular letter. It looks like it was sent December 29th of 1976, but the postmark on it is actually January 6th of 1977. So whoever wrote it obviously held up mailing it for a minute for whatever that reason was. It looks like it went to a lieutenant.
It's all code, the whole thing. And people are not going to be happy with this, and other people are going to be very happy.
Well, I thought it was interesting because some of the writing on the envelope actually looks like some of the writing that we'd seen on the Sherry Jo Bates Riverside.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. I did not find that the writing in this was consistent with what we'd seen from the Zodiac case. So I know that Terry had passed this on to you to look for code, but we'll just take it for what it's worth at this point. I don't believe it's Jack's handwriting. You even said yourself you don't believe it's Jack's handwriting, but you do believe there's a possibility this can be coming out of the same camp, correct?
Nanette, can you share the presentation so people can see it?
Oh, I forgot to do that. Nobody gets to see anything. One. I had it shared earlier, but I couldn't hear anything, so I had to back out and come back in. Here we go. All right, there's that letter. So it actually has I'm not even sure if that's a name. It looks like it's an address, but it has a very interesting number. I mean, an extremely long number for being an address. Is that 197561 Erskine?
Yeah.
Detroit,
this
Michigan.
Screaming code.
Okay. So it's mailed to a Lieutenant Earl Ringer at the Royal Oak Police Department, Royal Oaks, Michigan. It says, to whom it may concern, Lieutenant Earl Ringer, Jill Robinson was killed by her mother of all people. She was killed at home and she was not missing these days. There is no connection between the other crimes. Check her boyfriend. I mean, her mother's boyfriend. So that's an interesting statement. Is that part of that secret witness stuff? Because clearly this person is not signing and saying who they are.
And it's signed 1975. So I was like, good Lord, this is all code. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know who would have written that 1975. I'm trying to see if I felt that it was consistent with any of these other. It's kind of consistent with these other writings. What's that?
I said, it's not. Once I finished with this, I was floored as to who it's from. But anyways.
Yeah, well, let's bring that up because I see that we have a whole. Yeah.
The envelope and the address, the name, Lieutenant Earl, whatever, the writing there is different than the writing in the letter.
There is some differences.
This way, it's darker. It doesn't look the same. Looks like maybe two different people wrote.
Well, keep in mind, like I said, that one was written on 12/29/76. So the letter was written in December 29th of 76, but it isn't mailed until January 6th of 1977. So they could have written this particular communication and then filled out the envelope at a later time or a later date when they actively mailed it. So I didn't do.
Why does it say 1975 on the one at the bottom?
That's what Harriet just commented on, and I think that's interesting. We don't know. I mean, I can't imagine that law enforcement would have written 1975 on it because that predates the actual letter. So I'm not sure who wrote that or how that ended up on that particular. Again, I just saw this communication for the first time, I think, last week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so you have. I'm showing now the actual makeup of the stent. Is this one a stenographic code?
It's just all code. It's the same thing, Zodiac-esque style of Jack's World, of identifying everything possible about the stamp, filling in the address, the correct address, and to identify what's the correct zip code, and then anagram. It was actually pretty easy for me to get the puzzle pieces together, but 3 days in a row I messed up on my putting the puzzle pieces together. So I don't want to get into that. So
it looks it looks like you ended up with 1,087 symbols, and clearly the communication doesn't have 1,087 symbols, but that means that you have unabbreviated, such as the Liberty Bell stamp, which we know is a stamp that we found was consistent between both Zodiac and the Atlanta, Georgia child killer. There's a session of stamps that are similarly being used back and forth between those communications.
Oh,
all right. The Liberty Bell.
So many of them. Yeah. So that's why I picked this, because I said I've done the others, but this was a shocker.
Well, and then that brings us to the actual, I want to say this is the bell letter message starting on 7/19 of 77 at 9:19:57 p.m. Public data network facsimile. So these are the actual words that you used in order to anagram and create the message, correct?
Well, yeah, it was coming out with a lot of acronyms and then actual words, like PDN. Okay, glad I found that. My God, that was brand new, and only the government and very wealthy organizations, major hospitals, had this new system. And where you could facsimile, where you could facsimile complete images, very crystal clear, all kinds of stuff. So this is, it just started in 1976 when Jimmy Carter was running. Oh God,
that's interesting.
Did I blow it?
Hold on one second, because I just wanted to add to that. You're speaking about the facsimile, and I recall in Jack's stuff a fax that he had either received or sent, and it was of oh gosh, I'm not going to remember her name, a famous actress, but it was a picture of her on the fax that was as fairly clear as I believe that faxes could have been at that time. So it's interesting that you're stating that they can now send images and not just language or text over the facsimile. Very interesting. So yes, let's go ahead and read this.
Yeah, you want me to do it because I have it before me.
Yep.
So
please do.
It's amazing. Okay, it is again the Public Data Network facsimile, Naperville State Hospital, to Dr. Dene. I issue execute order. 7 help war crimes Nazi people who killed your family circa 1944. 50 of your loved ones. 14F13, that's Nazi code, and I described it. It's 14 for concentration camp inspectors, F for German word for death out of Todesfall, and 13 for carbon monoxide gas as cause of death. Then 1945, the 99th Infantry liberated the Jews, the Dachau area, 3 labor camps and 1 concentration camp. 1945, after World War II and occupied Germany, religious freedoms were relaxed on October 31st, Halloween. We're not rewriting history here. You can look it up. Anyways, and they could get passports. So limited English proficiency, Lieutenant Colonel Conrad Schalling, a Lutheran, with Reinhold Kohl and Albert Jur, dressed as nuns in Eastern Rite Catholic habits, carrying a 1751 Bible, left with the help of Harold Busch of General Motors in Germany and best friends Hermann Göring and Major Hans-Jur Bacher, with almost over the A, who printed lies on their passports, provided they made their way to Vietnam. Then 1954, passage to freedom. Let me stop for a few seconds there. Jimmy Carter often said "Teh" instead of 2. So anyways, Te Freedom, with help of USN Barry King, 88, that means Heil Hitler, Nazi from New Zealand, and in parentheses, mother, brother, King, Onsell, are same thing, 88, stow all together on vessel. They traveled to the States, to Third Reich, J.W. Michalek, Fort Collins, Colorado area, 1957, 1960, 1961, got established in USA. You can check out the history of these guys anyways. So keep going with the letter. Okay. Each went by train to east to 284 Erskine House in Detroit, Michigan, then to Chicago area. I sent nominesios to Hunt, who helped Schellung, Kull, and Dutcher, the Nazi traitors, to kill 5 members of their families in the same Adolf Hitler way, be rounded up, get rest, tricked into believing they're safe, be taken care of, see movies, eat their favorite foods, then afterwards in bondage and die by carbon monoxide. Pause. Pretty Christine Michalek, 10 years old, on January 2nd, 1977, held 19 days, then gassed and deep frozen. Thereafter, i.e. thereafter, was Tim King, 11 years old, on March 16th, 1977, in parentheses, 8 KFC, drank OJ, DOA, and then he's trying to say Stebbins was Nixon traitor, execute order was 12 in 1976. Then future crime, shoot Tim's 88 Heil Hitler, Nazi, 5150, crazy sister Cathy at 19 years old, and her boyfriend Christopher Busch at 27 years old. Next, a Nuremberg trial and sentencing date for Hermann Göring, anniversary of November 20th, 1978. Jill Robinson, her death is by Ed Bell of Texas. P.S. Question, do you have Shitty Rat Gottlieb of MK Ultra, the 2-cent red, carmine red, George Washington Bureau of Printing and Engraving, 11 millimeter by 10.5 millimeter perforations, Cincinnati, Ohio, the peyote on a stamp, the command remedy? Yes, send some very fast by way of His Holiness, the Pope and Vatican Code, now in the Public Data Network facsimile, sent with words that have first message on envelope, Dr. Dento message, signed Naval Reservist, now President James E. Carter Jr. And then I left at the bottom that there was an image of the Liberty Bell somewhere on this paper. And I signed it off, message achieved to the best of my ability. Hats off to Jimmy Carter. He was going after the Nazis.
Gotcha. So the Jill Robinson and death by Ed Bell. So where is Ed Bell? Who is Ed Bell?
He's a killer. He was also trafficking cocaine, all kinds of things, and out of Texas. And he's associated with, of all people, John Edward Walsh Jr. And he's associated with the I-45 killing cases. And they actually used Ed Bell as a way to do a test marketing for Texas Most Wanted, so they can have the America's Most Wanted show in the future. So,
gotcha.
Anyways, yeah. So this is the second time it's saying through these Oakland County cases that Ed Bell is the killer of Jill Robinson. It was also, I think, in the secret witness thing we did 2 weeks ago.
So we didn't have, I was under the impression that was by the same person who took out Timothy King and everybody else. So is he part of this group, or is he just a separate killer?
It looks like he's an opportunist killing, to say it macabrely, that he killed for another reason, got her, probably has to, as usual, something to do with drugs, and he's from Texas, and he came up to get her, something like that. But they just used this as an opportunity to throw her also in the mix to make it look like it's obviously coming out something that is really not. This is not
Gotcha.
about this is not about some pedophile going after little girls and boys. This is apparently, as much people are not going to like hearing this for other reasons.
Are you still there?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me okay? Yeah,
I can hear you now. You said people are not going to like this, but we lost you right after that.
They're just not going to like a lot of this because this has been presented for the last 40-something, 50 years as a serial killer going after little boys and girls. And these three kids, the main three, I keep on seeing Nazi connections and people doing living lives that they shouldn't have left, and the kids dying because of that.
Wow. Well, that makes
Yeah.
it a little interesting, especially since the actual communication itself states that Joe Robinson is not part of the group of this serial killer's works. And now your message is yielding that it is somebody else who actually killed her. Very interesting. All right.
Yes.
Well, that's gonna bring us back to suspects. And so we started or left off, I'm sorry, with the suspects or named persons of interest. This is that same article, the what we know about these cases in 2023. We started on last week. Now, of course, this gives us kind of a look back at several different people, and we can see Chris Busch over here to the left of the presentation. We can also see some of the other named suspects that were looked at, and so we're going to talk about them. It says a suspect is not currently named in the Oakland County child killer case. Instead, investigators have several persons of interest in the case, people who may know or at least know of the killer. Many of the persons of interest have ties to crimes involving pedophilia. The evidence tying these persons of interest in the case range from DNA to flat out accusations. So one of their first ones, and I remember Sloan, so Archibald Edward Sloan, was investigators believed that he could have ties to the Oakland County child killer. Investigators found a hair in Sloan's car. What's that? Oh. Investigators found a hair in Sloan's car, a 1966 Pontiac Bonneville, that is a DNA match to evidence found at two of the Oakland County child killer crime scenes, Mark Stebbins and Timothy King's. So interesting. This is, well, it's listing the two boys. The hair is not Sloan's, but police believe it belonged to someone he knows. It is believed that Sloan worked at a garage or gas station near 10 Mile and Middle Belt roads during the time of the Oakland County child killer murders. The 81-year-old man was sentenced to life in prison in 1985 on 2 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. The charges were for an assault that took place on October 1st, 1983. Sloan is alive and is still serving that sentence. So I guess that was, so he in prison in 1985. Gotcha. And that brings us to Christopher Busch. It says for decades, victims' family members believed Christopher Busch was the Oakland County child killer. He was a convicted pedophile who lived in Bloomfield Hills. Busch's name first came up in 1977 when Gregory Green was arrested on child sexual assault charges. Green told police Busch killed Stebbins. Busch was arrested, and while in custody, he confessed to sexually assaulting a child. Green was convicted and sentenced to life in prison on child sexual assault charges. Busch faced the same charges and agreed to a plea deal. Busch was sentenced to probation for sexually assaulting James Vincent Gunnels, who was a child at the time. Gunnels told police Busch assaulted him at the Busch family cottage on S Lake in northern Michigan. Police got a call that Busch was at S Lake with 3 young boys just 3 days before Tim King was found dead. Busch killed himself in 1978. Police sources told Local 4 that Busch's suicide appeared suspicious and may have been a murder. And that's what we're going to talk about. Blood-stained ropes were found at Busch's home.
I just want to say, whenever you're ready, I got a lot to say about Christopher Busch.
Yes, when I get there.
Suicide.
Right. So bloodstained ropes were found at Busch's home. The ropes were kept in an evidence locker for years before they went missing. Again, more missing evidence. Why does that shock me? Photos from the suicide scene also show a drawing that was pinned to Busch's wall. It appears to be a drawing of a tortured child. Some believe the child resembles Mark Stebbins. In 2012, police said there is zero evidence suggesting Busch was the killer. His DNA does not match the physical evidence investigators have. So there's DNA in this case, if they still have that. There isn't a piece of evidence that we can point to and say Mr. Busch killed Timothy King, Joe Robinson, Christine Mihalik, or Mark Stebbins, said then Chief Assistant Oakland County Prosecutor Paul Walton in 2012. So it's been quite some time, but we know that this is the #1 suspect for Cathy Broad. This seems to be who Terry Batcher thinks she focuses in on as far as a suspect is concerned. And that actually really brings us to some of the information that Cathy Broad has put out on her website. I believe this was sent to me by her back when we were actually communicating in regards to my belief that there was some type of a connection between the communications of the Zodiac killer and the Oakland County child killer. So it shows Affian has reviewed police reports prepared by Bloomfield Township Officer Richard J. McNamee on November 20th, 1978, and is thereby informed of the following. Number 1, on November 20th, 1978, Officer McNamee was dispatched to 3310 Morning View Terrace to check on the welfare of Christopher Busch. McNamee was informed by Christine Bracken that she was the Busch's maid and she hadn't been able to get in the house that morning. The newspapers from 3 days earlier were still outside the door, and she suspected that something was wrong. She went to a neighbor's house and the neighbor called Christopher Busch's brother, Charles Busch. Charles had then called Bloomfield Township PD. Charles told Officer McNamee that Christopher Busch was living in the home with their parents, who were at the time in England. The officers made entry into the home. Christopher Busch was found deceased lying on a bed in a bedroom. He had a bullet wound in the forehead and a rifle was laying on the bed next to his body. The report was titled suicide. So what did you want to share about that, Harriet?
Well, number one, I've read enough about the last two weeks of Christopher Busch. His family, obviously, whether they're Nazi or not connected, very intelligent, very smart, very international, very wealthy, and he was running a very successful restaurant that his father bought for him. There's a lot of things that are not exactly matching. Yeah, Christopher Busch owned a restaurant and was running a successful restaurant in his 20s. So I said, this is not a guy who's a crazy pedophile. Yeah, he got labeled as a pedophile, but that was, a lot of things going on, especially when you see it from the Nazi point of view, what they did to people. They labeled them pedophiles. They labeled them crazy. Then they were going to take care of them and take them away. So that's my viewpoint on Christopher Busch. The picture that they show of him makes him look like he's a homeless deadbeat. Apparently, he was quite wealthy. And I know, and as it's saying right now, what you just read, he was living, something that has to do with his parents, and they were very wealthy. So I wanted to point that out about him. Yes.
Well, and so this is kind of a breakdown and a list of, I believe, some of the events in the case, more information that was probably gleaned from the FOIA files that Cathy Broad has put together. So it's literally going down, talking about the actual murders. It's talking about people who were spoken to or about. And I'm just kind of flashing that on the screen so everybody can go back at some point in time if they'd like to be able to read that.
I have a question. Okay, so they labeled it a suicide, but did they investigate do any investigation in regard to a homicide? Because it looks pretty suspicious.
It does, and it says that itself in this, is that Busch's suicide appeared suspicious and may have been a murder. So they weren't settled in on the fact that this was an actual suicide. And I want to state that Terry had mentioned at one point in time that Chris Busch was actually found in his bed with his cover pulled up and the rifle off to the side. So if he had shot himself with it, how would he cover himself up? How would he place that rifle in any location outside of laying in the middle of his lap, if that's what he had actually used to kill himself.
And if he was found that way, then they shouldn't have labeled it as suicide. That's crazy.
Exactly. And so here's the picture of Chris Busch's bedroom as it was the day that he was found in what they referred to as a suicide, or was he suicided? So there's always that interesting factor, because we've seen several murders or even purported suicides that appear to have some type of question behind whether or not that person actually committed suicide or if they were killed. So it's not the first time. And I think that's, what did they say? The Clintons had something like 100 or more suicides surrounding them over their lifespan in politics.
The Clintonistas? I remember those days. Okay.
The what?
The Clintonistas.
What's that?
That's what they were called, going after them. Whatever.
It was
going
a
after who?
play on words from Sandinista.
They were, so they were calling the mysterious deaths done by the Clintonistas. You know, too many people that were suicided. Yeah.
Too many. I'm sorry, but I probably know on less than one hand anybody who has committed suicide in my 51 years. So yeah, to have more than 100, and a lot of these people were people who were either blowing the whistles on them or sharing information. And next thing you know, they're either attacked by the IRS or they're dead. There's your choices if you mess with the Clintons.
Vince Foster comes to mind. I mean, okay, we got to get back on track.
Now I'm back on track. So of course I have this phone book over here to the right, which we had discussed earlier in regards to Carol Settlemyer having gone missing. Her family, she picked up and left Michigan in 1977, not to be heard from again until 1993 when Rangers found her. But I did find this phone book in Jack's belongings, and of course we have receipts that bear the markings 3. I can barely read that. 3/11/77, and then the bottom one is 12/20/76. So we'll find that these dates are actually within days of the children's abductions and murders. And of course, there's that consideration that Timothy King had been fed fried chicken before he was killed. And so I have wondered if there was any possible way of actually tracking back or tracing back these particular receipts to an establishment, but I really just don't find the markings necessary. And I'm sure that would be a very tough job to do unless somebody out there knows how I could do that. Here is some additional photographs from the Busch suicide scene, and we see here that these are the ropes. They were talking about the bloody ropes that were found in Chris Busch's room. I believe in the John Benet Ramsey matter, there was somebody who had entered the family's holiday home in Charlevoix, Michigan, and they also found rope in one of the rooms that was not associated with the family. So this is a running in here that we're seeing. And I'm not quite sure why Terry found this one to be all that interesting, but he had mentioned or commented on the 1979 VW Rabbit. I think that was probably more of a relation to the Jack Rabbit theme that we have going on in the Zodiac case. I think he felt that was literally a connection. And of course, he talked about the lighter inside the shotgun shell. And I think that's about it for those pictures. Let's see. Oh, here it is. So this is kind of an actual breakdown of the crime scene photo. It says, I have several good reasons to suspect that this image found at the Chris Busch death scene is a very cryptic crime scene diorama that was placed by Zodiac Jack. It simply contains far too many Zodiac Jack 101 nuances and hints that pertain to the OCC case and other cases. Here are just a few that I see, and at least one of which was pointed out and identified by Bob Schultz. And I believe that's a person that he talks to in regards to his solves or his beliefs. So he says there is a key saver bobber, and that is pointing, so a key saver bobber, that's for a boat, a Bic lighter, white in color, a shotgun shell, a candy scoop. Where's that candy scoop? Oh, I see it. A book, blue in color, an eraser, 2 each pens, 1 each pencil, 1 each marker. 1979, a V and W, rabbit, die cell, but he broke apart the word diesel. Lined paper, writing pad turned 90 degrees. I don't know why he put CCW. A rather large gauge piece of chain, a black and white portable TV set with a VHF and UHF loop antenna. Missing from the image is the bag of rope found in Bush's closet. So in summary, we had 3 each of the Zodiac killer's death threat methods: by gun, by rope, and by fire. Might part of this message serve as a key code for use on perhaps the cryptic Allen to Dr. Danto letter? Did he ever discuss that with you, Harriet?
The cryptic key code for the Dr. Danto? No, I just, I honestly am not going to engage with him on the emails because, so I think he tried to, but I don't remember seeing it. So all I know is I did what I did, and he was screaming at you about that message that you had the red lines on, and I knew that was the right message going with this other one that he sent me. So, anyways, so no.
Yeah, well, I do see the differences between them because I did a comparison of both the one that was supposed to have been typed verbatim versus the one that was actually typewritten by a typewriter. And I do see the differences. I do see that there are missing points and missing sentences and other items that are not spelled correctly based on the original typed version. So I still am going to sit down and type that up so that I can get a good look at it in the condition in which it was, and then I'll send that over to you. So this is
all
what
I know is that what the one that you had with all the red lines. This is what this is saying in that Bell 77 thing. That was the message sent the way it was. That was faxed. So
the typewritten
anyways, I'd love to
letter
see the
was
other one.
faxed.
Yeah. That's how it was faxed. That's a facsimile, the whole thing. And there's no envelope, nothing. It just says there's a message on the envelope, blah, blah, blah. That 1977 Bell letter is also a facsimile saying that's how that message was sent.
Okay, but the one that you viewed was a retyped version from Cathy Broad. So we know that was not what was sent. The one that you viewed was the one that I was given.
Well, I'm having doubts there because this is saying that's what that said on it.
Well, we can see the font.
Said all that. Anyways,
we could see the font on it. It was drafted by a computer. It certainly wasn't typed. The typed version.
That's what this system. That's what this data system was done. It's done by computer.
Well, I get it by computer, but that font I don't believe was available. But I could look. I could check. Go ahead, Nolan.
So we'll just keep going.
In this version of the photo, it definitely does look like it's a prearranged setup there, like the way the lighter is placed on the bullet shell and different things. It looks like someone intentionally put things in a particular order.
That's a definitely interesting stacking of miscellaneous items for sure. I mean, you got the lighter, shotgun shell, and a candy scoop over the top of a book. Don't know if I'd put all of that stuff together. So this is what Terry had to say. We in our core group agree that Chris Busch would not have placed such an incriminating image on his or her own wall. It's also amazing just how well the out-of-place flowery blanket matches the print pattern and color of the address book cover. I just think that's a coincidence, and they're not exactly the same. I mean, let's look at that again. We can see that the pattern on the book, this is 1977, folks, so this is the motif, if you will, for lots of items during this time frame, but we can see that they're clearly not the same flower patterns by any means. It's two totally different colors, two totally different patterns. So I'm not sure what the intention was to point out there. The brass candy scoop theme with the shotgun shell thoroughly shadows the Jill Robinson shotgun murder. To those of us that are familiar with how Zodiac Jack operated, we know with great certainty that he murdered Chris Busch and thoroughly decorated the crime scene. You have both the by rope and by gun Zodiac Killer Paradise, spelled incorrectly, slaves, death threats. It's all actually evidentiary overkill. A VW rabbit hole. A rather loud die cell cryptic hint. So diesel, once again, he's broken into 2 words. That brings us to James Vincent Gunnels. James Vincent Gunnels told Local 4 in 2012 that he had nothing to do with the murders. Gunnels' DNA is a mitochondrial DNA match to a hair found on Christine Mihelik's body. A mitochondrial match means that the hair belongs to Gunnels or a male relative on his mother's side. I'm not guilty. That there it is there. But at the same time, I know how the state police twist words to their advantage, Gunnels said in 2012. My heart goes out to those families. It really, really, really does. I don't feel that they were served justice through any of this. Gunnels was only 16 years old at the time of the killings. According to the police documents, investigators believe Gunnels may have been part of a group involved in the child killings or used as a lure to draw kids closer to the killer. So here they are also believing that there's a group involved with the Oakland County child murders.
Right. And he's just saying he didn't do it. He didn't say he wasn't part of a bigger group.
Right. Right. And I found it interesting that he said really, 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 because we were seeing a lot of that. Please, 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 really, really, really in the letter to Dr. Danto as well. Well, and that brings us to Theodore Lamborghini and Richard Lawson. There was a sex ring that targeted young boys in Detroit's Cass Corridor in the 1970s. There were 5 men believed to be involved in the ring. Theodore Ted Lamborghini and Richard Lawson were the only 2 still alive when they faced charges in 2006. Lamborghini was charged with 19 counts of sexually assaulting children, and Lawson faced 28 similar charges. So if they're killers, why kill just 3 or 2 boys, but have 19 to 28 rape charges? If they were killers, you'd think they'd be killing everybody, so there wouldn't be anybody to testify. I mean, right? If you're going to kill one, why not kill them all?
Yeah.
Just kind of a thought. I mean, being a pedophile doesn't make you a killer. That's definitely, I would assume that there are definitely pedophiles out there that would never actually actively kill somebody. You know, that would be way beyond their scope of sexual activity. It's the sex part that they're interested in, and that's why they're pedophiles. Says investigators do not believe either man is the killer, but they do believe they have valuable information regarding the case. Lawson was serving a life sentence for murder when he told Local 4 in 2006 that he knows who the Oakland County child killer is. Lawson named Bobby Moore, one of the deceased members of the sex ring, as the killer. Lamborghini is still alive and serving his life sentence. So have you heard of anybody named Bobby Moore, Harriet?
Nope, that name does not show up in any. I mean, how many of these I've done? Nope.
Okay.
So, yeah,
What was
nothing.
Ahmad Rashad's original name?
What's
Before
that?
he changed it. Ahmad Rashad was originally Bobby Moore. He plays a football player. Now he's a celebrity. Married to Felicia Rashad from the Cosby Show.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Ah.
But anyway, that was his name. Just a coincidence.
Yeah, okay. And then our next suspect is David Norberg. David Norberg was considered a suspect until 1999. In August 1999, a team of experts flew to Wyoming to exhume Norberg's body. DNA samples were taken and tested, but there was no match. So he's been excluded. So they've excluded just about everybody, and they think just a couple people may actually have some information. Terry went on to say, because the subject of David Norberg is rather involved, I recommend that I offer you a very brief summary statement about the whole set of 355 pages, which I believe is all on this David Norberg. First 4 pages are general outline about the OCCK cases and a summary statement about Norberg. Pages 5 through 23 cover the subject of Christine Mihelik, her autopsy, medical reports, and personal items found on her. For instance, in the personal items listed, a red, white, and blue beaded necklace, which caught my interest. The next group of pages from page 24 to page 109 are labeled as being Department of Public Safety City of Berkeley narrative report. The same group of pages are centered around the subject of David Norberg, but they address several different persons and correlated subjects. I've read these same reports in the past, but I set them aside for the time being. There are some rather astounding things to say about the whole works, but I think we should, and for the time being, address that whole narrative at a later date. Meanwhile, I'll compose a quick summary statement list about the Norberg factor, which can be quickly read at your podcast. I'll get that back to you just as soon as possible. Later this afternoon, I'll gather up and forward the Chris Busch bedroom images that I have. So we've seen that that's happened, but it did not actually ever end up with the Norberg factor summary as he had indicated. Let's see. Terry on Norberg. Oh no, here's the quick summary. I lied. A quick summary of the late OCCK suspect David Norberg. In approximately 1976 to 77, David Norberg made the local cops BMF for bad motherfuckers file attached, page 92 of 355 for the OCCK cases. But he was cleared. He and his wife relocated to Wyoming and he died in 1981 in a car accident. However, his family thought he'd been shot in the head because there was blood dripping out the back of his head at the funeral. However, police report says he was ejected through the windshield and his head was crushed. His wife remarried within 6 months. That's quick. Fast forward to 1988, and apparently his wife. What's that?
It's the funeral. There's blood coming out of his head. That's
right?
Crazy.
That would be, yeah, that would be freaky. You shouldn't still be bleeding at that point, right?
Yes, you should be taken care of by the mortician. Anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So fast forward to 1988, and apparently his wife and several other people were saying several very negative and incriminating things about the deceased David Norberg. Apparently the word got to the cops and media, and the race was on to Wyoming, and mainly because his widow gave away a small cross with Christine, as in OCCK victim Christine Mihalik, inscribed on it that was supposedly found in David Norberg's personal items. Well, the extensive Berkeley public safety narrative files point Norberg as a very, very low form of a human being, as well as his family members. Lots of gumshoe work was involved, but basically the whole works led to naught. I also attached page 85 of 355 page file posted by Cathy Broad. I moved that we postpone going into the Norberg files, but it is an interesting read, and I can't discount the possibility that Norberg was possibly an OCCK secondary operative. However, I'm very, very certain that he was not the primary operative, and so are my main colleagues. Norberg was certainly not diabolically clever. The various and key written documents from the OCCK case, like Secret Witness, Dr. Danto, and a string of Zodiac speaking documents, make several things very clear to us. We can always come back to the Norberg case later on. Please check out just these two annotated files for now. So he believes that it's an interesting read, and maybe he is part of the group, but not necessarily the killer, as we have just seen based on that article. He was cleared by DNA.
Or the ringleader, definitely. Maybe a participant, but definitely not one of the lead people.
Right. And 92 of the bad motherfucker file reference is what he calls this. It's actually where they've typed up the information on Norberg, and they literally did actively put the State Police Task Force BMF file, and in parentheses it says the BMF file is bad motherfuckers, and the file was for prime suspects. So that's what they called the prime suspect file for the OCCK case. The number 2 shot as used on Robinson, David stated that he used number 2 shot when rabbit hunting. Interesting. And this is on the Norberg thing again. Murders not linked to Oakland County child killer. There are 4 other names that come up when you search online for information about victims of the Oakland County child murder. Police have either disproven any connection to the Oakland County child killer case, or there is no conclusive evidence linking them to the serial killings. Those names are Jane Louise Allen, Kimberly Alice King, Cynthia Ray Cadu, and Sheila Srock. What do you say about those particular victims, Harriet?
I want to look into them to see if there's any loose connections, as in they were, is this before the King and Mihalik and Stebbins murders, or after?
Yes, I believe that these
after?
4 were, no, these 4 already occurred. They had already happened. I want to say they were just a bit
okay. They may be witnesses. I mean, in my view, it's possible 1 or 2 may be witnesses of certain things that were happening, and they could have been taken out of the equation, but maybe not just by Jack, but other people. So I wanted to look into them. I did see those names.
Okay. I will shoot you over a
Yeah.
picture of this so that you can look at it. I do note that there's a King, Kimberly Alice King. We had a Timothy King. We had the Jane Louise Allen, and we had Allen as the letter, the accomplice. We're just about out of time. We're working down on our last minute here. I want to thank you for your efforts and your solves again, Harriet. They never cease to amaze me. And Nolan for being here. Everybody's been absolutely amazing. I think this kind of rocked it. We'll take a look at these individuals later and see if there's anything you can come up with on those. Is there anything like you guys would like to add?
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, right. All right, everybody.
Have a great weekend, and I'm probably moving next week. So
awesome. I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, everybody take care. Have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.
Oh,